Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. My name's Steve Kostick. This is the Political Blowback Podcast, and I'll be your host for the next several minutes, and I'm very pleased that you've joined us. Thank you so much. I'm going to continue on with a promise that I made a while ago, that I would be talking about propaganda in politics. And specifically what I'm going to talk about is the propaganda that is coming out of Russia and that is also permeating North America and other democratic countries. Years ago, this is how things went down. I'm of a generation that I remember this. So on the evening news at 6 o'clock p.m. you turned your television on, or 6:30 as the case may be, and you had people like Chet Huntley or David Brinkley or Walter Cronkite, and they delivered the news as Walter Cronkite would always lament at the close of a broadcast, he'd say, "And that's the way it is." And from that point, there was no internet. So people would congregate in coffee shops and perhaps at work over the water cooler, and there would be these cursory discussions about what happened in the news of the previous day. And the press was what it was supposed to be at the time, and it was a pillar of democracy, and it was the institution of the fifth estate. And of course, these people did their jobs to the very best of their abilities. I still believe they do their jobs to the best of their abilities. But something changed when Donald Trump hit the campaign trail in the 2016 election, when he said, "Oh, that's fake news, and this is fake news, and this is fake news." And then he would say, "The New York Times is fake news, and this organization was fake news." And any organization that did not flatter him became, in his mind's eye, fake news. And then his lemmings would get all warm and fuzzy and gushy and go, "Oh, that's right, they're all fake news." As if there was some grandiose conspiracy theory that was taking place in the news media against Donald Trump. There has been a conspiracy in the news media against presidents since the beginning of time, because they are doing the job that they are supposed to do. They are the fifth estate. They are supposed to keep the president and other elected officials in check. That is their job. So when Donald Trump turned around and said, "Oh, everything's fake news," and he somehow managed to get a whole bunch of naive people to believe that, that meant that now the news was fertile ground. And many people made the erroneous assumption that, well, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go to the internet, and the internet is going to give me my news from now on. And now we don't know how credible anything is on the internet. It could be a very legitimate source. It could also be somebody's Rottweiler that's posting a link for you to consume. And what may follow from that is, I read this post by this Rottweiler, laugh out loud, and now this becomes somehow true. And that is precisely how this ground becomes very fertile for misinformation. I wish I had some statistics that would tell me how much disinformation is floating around the internet. However, I don't have that. But I can tell you this: there are many influences that are coming from both within North America and from outside of North America that is designed to help formulate your opinion about the world stage and world events and events going on inside North American countries. No exception to that, of course, is Russia. One of the reasons I left Twitter is because I was seeing an enormous amount of misinformation. And I also started to notice that anyone that had a differing opinion that was contrary to what the prevailing sentiment was on Twitter, you would really be somehow miraculously dialed down. And you didn't get much interaction with people. I'm not really sure if that was by design or whether that was just a coincidence, but suffice it to say that, you know, if you were of a mindset that you could think independently of the Twitter crowd, you were not looked upon very, very fondly. One of the things that I used to see very, very often on Twitter is I used to see this narrative about Ukraine and Russia, Zelensky and Putin, and the narrative that was repeated over and over and over again is that NATO was engaging in a proxy war with Russia, as if that was something that was derogatory and something of a substance to criticize NATO and perhaps Ukraine. Let me tell you something. I followed the comings and goings and the proceedings in Ukraine since the time that Ukraine became in its infant stages of a newborn democracy as an independent nation. And I will tell you, in no uncertain terms, that Russia went to great lengths to infiltrate their culture, their finances, their economy, and this Russia was a country that just would not let go. They wanted to put their hooks into Ukraine and they wanted to keep them there. That was clear at the outset of their independence. Okay? I followed it daily. I don't need a link. I don't need to click a link to understand what happened in Ukraine. I know what happened in Ukraine. Now, the prevailing narrative, the false narrative that permeates the internet is still available. And that is that NATO is fighting a proxy war. Who's saying this? My suspicion is that this is a Russian operative designed to provide misinformation, and this is also being disseminated by the MAGA people. Because, you know, if Tucker Carlson said it, it must be true. Which is the most ridiculous sentiment I think I've ever heard in my life. People make mistakes, that's why they put erasers on the end of pencils. The perceptions that happened in Ukraine and the narratives once that war started were just unbelievable. You know, we're hearing things, even to this day, we're hearing things about that conflict which suggests that Ukraine started the war. Number one, and this is very, very important, because it's Logic 101. When a country marches into another sovereign country and starts to perform a genocide of citizens in a city like Mariupol, when that happens, and when you come in with soldiers and trucks and tanks, guess what? You started the war. Nobody else. You started the war. Russia started the war. There is no margin for debate. They are the ones that went into Ukraine, They are the ones that tried to take Ukraine over. They are the ones that performed the genocide of civilians, and they have been doing it almost on a daily basis since the start of the war. You just don't hear about it so much because over time, mainstream news, what's another 50 people? What's another 14 people? What's another 13 people? What's a couple of babies? We've seen that, done that, and the mainstream news does not cover it intently. Having said that, they have many other things to cover as well. There's no question about that as well. So the narrative that I have heard repeatedly is that, oh, well, Ukraine, you know what they were doing? They were attacking their own citizens inside of like Donbass. Yeah, they were. That's what I'm hearing. The part that nobody is telling you, and I witnessed this firsthand because I followed it as it happened. I don't need a link. I don't need to click a link to understand what happened in Ukraine. Okay? Vladimir Putin, in his inherent non-wisdom, decided that it would be a good idea to bring militants and covert political operatives into Ukraine to cause political animosity, to cause violence, to disrupt society in Ukraine. And here's a flash from the newsroom. Ukraine, as an independent sovereign nation, had every right and privy to protect its institution of its country and its citizens and its cities. Number one rule of fighting is the third man in gets a game misconduct. Vladimir Putin did receive a game misconduct. But I'm going to tell you what, he buttered you up real good with his misinformation. Oh, we're going to go in there and all the Russian-speaking people that are in the region of Donbass, we're going to stick up for them. In the decade of the 1970s, when Canada experienced the FLQ crisis, which was a separatist movement that was trying to separate Quebec from the rest of the country, they made one wrong move. They kidnapped 2 diplomat people. And both of them died, by the way. And Pierre Trudeau, who was the prime minister at the time, said, that's it, just watch me. And he declared martial law. And he uprooted those they're essentially terrorists, trying to tear apart the country. And Pierre Trudeau, through martial law, put this all to rest, to bed. A country that is sovereign has a right to do that. When Ukraine has people that are invading areas like the Donbass, and they're going to send their militant operatives in, and they're going to send their political operatives in, and their propaganda operatives, and they're going to try to tear apart Ukraine, Ukraine has a right to defend itself. Now, when you listen to these MAGA head people, they're going to do recantations of people like Tucker Carlson. They're going to say, oh, well, Vladimir Putin, this is a proxy war with NATO. So Russia's in the right, NATO's in the wrong. The MAGA people are the ones who are going to pound their chests and say, freedom. I stand for freedom. I stand for the Constitution of the United States. I stand for freedom. your hypocrisy is very, very, very clear. Freedom for me, but not freedom for thee. Do any of those MAGA people, do they ask the people of Ukraine, or are they curious about what the people of Ukraine think? Did it not occur to them that the people of Ukraine want an alliance with the European Union? They want an alliance with NATO. That should be of their choosing. Okay? This is, I apologize to the MAGA people in the United States. However, what you must understand is that Ukraine is under no obligation to check with you to see if they want to join NATO or Costco. The will of the people is a democracy. That's what true freedom is, not double standard freedom, where you say freedom for me, but not freedom for thee. I think that's very, very important to understand. I want to thank you for joining us. Perhaps I'll continue on a little bit more about the situation in Ukraine and Russia, but I do thank you for joining us today and hope to see you again on the next episode of this podcast. And please don't forget to like and subscribe, because that gives us encouragement to keep doing what we're doing. You have a great day.